Ever wondered if that thrift store painting could flip for thousands? In this video, I'm uncovering the secrets to why some artworks can skyrocket in value. Stick around to see if you can spot these collectible gems before your competition does. So I think the best thing to do is to go across to the computer and just to run through some of the paintings and watercolors, oils, sketches that sold on eBay recently to give you some sort of idea what to look out for when you're out and about, because you can find these types of things in folders, little collections, or just standalone deals. So let's get across to the computer and have a look and see what we need to be looking for. Now, this first one up is actually an oil on canvas, and it's by an artist called Oliver Clare. Now, Oliver Clare actually came from a family of artists. His brother Vincent Clare is also sought after, and the father George Clare as well, who come before them. And now this one, they all did still life studies. Now this one's quite a nice one. It's still life fruit on a cabbage leaf with a mossy background. And you do see these from time to time. As I say, it's a Birmingham artist, very popular in the late Victorian times to Edwardian times. So around 1890, 1900, that type of thing. It's a nice still life, all on canvas. And as you see, this one made $1,020. So big money. I mean, these used to be, I think, back in the day, around in the late 90s, I think the record price was getting on for 20,000 for one of these. But I mean, the market has dropped considerably for the works, but which it does. When we're talking about paintings, trends and tastes come and go, and these Victorian style of pictures just aren't as popular as they used to be. But even so, this one here, $1,020, something you can find when you're out and about. You can see pictures by Oliver Clare. So it is worth being on the lookout, and they're always these still life studies, mainly fruit, sometimes flowers, but 9 times out of 10 they'll be a fruit study. Right, this one's just a little unframed watercolour, and it's a Victorian study, as you can see, just a little unframed, almost watercolour sketch, a nice coastal scene. Now it isn't signed, it's probably English, more than likely English. And as you can see, you've got the little figures unloading something off a boat, probably unloading a catch, lobster pots or what have you. But it's just like you kind of, the reason I put this in, this is like the typical watercolour you can find in a folder or a sketchbook or something when you're out and about on your travels. So it is worth looking, and it's just a nice tidy scene. It'd frame up nicely, and this one sold for £85, so you can kind of gauge where you need to be going with them. But just a nice Victorian unframed English school watercolour. Now this one, we come on to another, this is another oil painting again. Now this one's by an artist called David W. Haddon, and this is typical of his work. He always does like kind of fisher folk or fishermen, fisher ladies, or people, Cornish people basically, that type of genre. And again, really popular in the late 90s, early 2000s, but kind of the prices have kind of dropped off a little bit. This one made £325. And if we look at it, if we're honest, it's okay. But I mean, it's not the most detailed painting in the world, is it? But it's of its type. It's really nice. A typical Haddon oil painting, as I've said before. And now you can find these out in the wild. When you're out and about, he was prolific. He did loads of portraits. So you can find them. So it's a name to look out for. And they're going to be around the £200-300 mark, something like this. This one, as you can see, 2 bids, £325. So worth looking out for. Majority of the time, always little oils on canvases or oils on board. So David W. Haddon, a name to look out for. Now we have another Cornish artist here, and this is an actual watercolour painting, as you can see. Now it's actually entitled St Ives, and the artist is W. Sands. Well, this artist used 2 or 3 different names. He also used T.H. Victor, Thomas Herbert Victor, and he also used, I think it was H. Hammond as well. So when you start, you can see styles quite distinctive, not very detailed, just more, you know, like, how can I say, it's like a tourist piece. He used to paint these, really prolific, and I think that's why he used more than one name, so he could sell more paintings to people. It makes brilliant sense, doesn't it? And it's a nice little view, just down in St Ives, Cornwall. And again, this one made £95. And of its type, yeah, these you'll find W. Sands, T.H. Victors anywhere between £50 and £150, depending on the size and what's going on. But normally you find these little street views or harbour scenes, that type of thing. But just a nice little English watercolour. Now this one, in my view, this is a lovely painting, more of a traditional painting, what I'd probably call a proper antique. Now this one's actually dated for 1927. but the style of it, it does look a little bit earlier. It looks more Victorian in style. It's got a lovely frame, as you can see, a lovely rosewood veneered frame with a gilt painted slip. And there you have this lovely portrait of the horse, and it's really nicely done. And this one's sold for £6.50, and it doesn't surprise me because it's just a lovely subject and set up really nicely. I'm not sure of the artist. I've never come across the artist before. Herbert St. John Jones. That's a new name for me to look out for. But even if it wasn't signed, you can just tell by looking at the quality, looking at the painting, it holds a nice value and just a nice, I'm going to say Victorian style, but it's 1927, but that's what it is, more a Victorian style painting. Just something to look out for. Horses are always popular, dogs are always popular, cats are always popular. If you think horses, cats, dogs, things like that, animals that are popular with people always do well if they're in a frame as well. Now, next up, we have another painting, another Oliver Clare. This time, it's like, as I mentioned earlier, this one's a still life of flowers. Now, as you can see in the price, flowers aren't as sought after as a fruit. And if we look at it, it's a bit more wishy-washy. The details aren't as good. The background kind of merges in. So you can see why this one only made £200. So again, it absolutely not something to look out for, something you can find. But when you are out and about looking for the Olivers and the Vincent Clares, just do bear it in mind. But the fruit ones are a little bit better, and normally on canvas as well. If they're on canvas, a little bit better than if they're on board. Again, another one we're going back to, David Haddon again. Now, as you can see here, this is more of a 3/4 length portrait, and as you can see here, he's a fisherman standing there with his waders on and his just like his basket. And again, typical of David Haddon, as we said, genre Cornish, always Cornish people, 9 times out of 10. Just a nice little painting. It's framed up nicely. It's in a nice gesso frame as well, and this one was sold for £3.95. So just another example, similar kind of price, around the £300 mark. Definitely worth looking out for. Now we have a Victorian watercolor painting. Now again, this was just a little watercolor sketch, unframed again. Could have just come out of a folder or a sketchbook, but this one has got a nice title on it. It's actually entitled Snowdonia from Barmouth, Wales. Now, what you find with paintings like this, if they are entitled or have got a view or a name or a place, they are quite sought after, because if people have actually come from there or they've been there on holiday, people like to collect the area where they live or where they've been. So anything that's got a title on of a place, it does add a little bit to the painting. I mean, if we look, it's just a sketch. It's nothing too special. It's something that you can see quite often when you're out and about. Having that little title on probably adds £20 to the price. If it didn't have that on it, it'd be a £20 painting. With that title on, it just ups it, makes it a little bit better. So this one sold for £40. So it's something to be on the lookout when you're flicking through and folders full of watercolors. Anything titled with a name, place or something like that, always probably worth a little bit more than just the unmentioned places. Now again, we have another artist here. Now look at this one. This is more of a modern piece. Now this is by an artist called Cecil Rochford Doyley John. Normally we just call them Doyley Johns. It's just easier to say, isn't it? But as you can see here, very brightly painted. And this is actually painted with a palette knife, so it's quite heavy in pastel. It's slapped on with a palette knife and scraped around. As you can see, it's very, very light in shades. I actually really do like these works. Really, really nice. And look at this one. This one's sold for £1,975. So big money these are. And what we'll do now, we'll just zoom in, and if you can see here, this is the zoom in of the cart, isn't it? And his actual signature. And as you can see how thick the paint's been painted on. And yeah, you do see these out and about. You do find these in auctions, and because it's a bit more modern, they may get missed. People might just dismiss it because, if you can see, it's more of a 60s, 70s looking frame as well. But one for definitely to be on the lookout for. Now here we have another Victorian painting, and again, it's another case. This one's got a name on, and it's Sandend, Scotland. So again, this adds to it. A nice highland scene, river landscape, as you can see. And that's quite pleasant, isn't it? It's quite atmospheric. It's quite nice. It'd frame up cool. And this one sold for £70, and I can understand why. Again, not attributed to any artist, but it's dated 96, so that's going to be 1896. And just a nice scene, typical Victorian watercolour. Now you come on to a more modern painting. Now this one's actually by an artist called Richard Collick. Again, I'm unsure of this artist. I've never heard of him before, but this one's actually March 2000. And the reason why I put this one in, again, this is another, like, because it's a place. This is Melrose Abbey in Scotland. People visit it and things like that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be an antique painting or a really old painting for it to hold value. I mean, this is nicely painted, as you can see, the architecture of the window. It's really nicely done. Really nice pencil drawing to start with. So it's all in nice proportion and a nice image, isn't it? If you've been there, it's a nice little keepsake. And this one sold for £44.99, £45. Now this one again, we've got a bit of a graveyard and some ruins again. Now this goes the other way now. This is a older watercolour by an artist called Georgina Nichols. Now again, artist I'm unaware of, but it's a nice, as you can see, it's a nice monochrome watercolour, and this one's Scarborough Castle from a churchyard. So again, another landmark that people can know and collect or have been or know of. And again, it's just a nice painting, typically 19th century. More than likely out of a sketchbook or just a little folio, that type of thing. And this one made £39. And onto this one now. Now we have a David Cox, Warwick Castle. And as you can see, Warwick Castle in the distance, you've got figures in the boat. Now, David Cox was probably one of the premier Birmingham artists, probably one of the most famous. And you do see lots of his work after or attributed by, and it's really difficult to pinpoint if it is actually by him. But this one looks like it actually is, because it looks like an early example, and the quality and the detail is very good indeed. Now this one sold for £2,200. Just a little watercolour sketch, nothing, not a very big painting. But this just goes for the power of the artist and the provenance. If you see in the description, it's got Appleby Brothers Provenance. So what provenance means, it means that the painting's got a history and it's been documented as provenance to where it's been, who's had it, where it was bought, where it was sold, did it come directly from the artist. So it just adds that nice bit of history, and it guarantees that it is actually by the artist that it's been stated by. As you can see, it's a lovely scene. And again, Warwick Castle, it's an iconic place. People go on holiday there, don't they? People from all over the world visit Warwick Castle. So this has a lot of appeal. So it ticks all the boxes. Nice scene, great artist, good place. I hope you found that helpful. Hopefully it'll help you make some buying decisions when you're out and about. If you have enjoyed it, check this video here, as this shows some more things that you need to be on the lookout for when you're out and about.